My question for y'all is, and I think it will lean more towards no, but I'm not quite positive about that because from the 817, considering after week 1 with the terrible loss and Dak getting hurt, everyone thought the season was over. So I would say it was a success because no one thought we would even make the playoffs this year. And then you see more from like the 417. How can you call this season a success when we just keep coming up with the same BS results year after year? From the 903, once we traded Amari and Lyle and Tyron got hurt, everyone assumed we wouldn't be around 500. And that's why I have complicated feelings about this, because last night I would have been like, hell no, it's not a success, because I was upset about the loss in a game that I thought you absolutely should have won. But you go back to the beginning of the year, there was not a lot of optimism about the Cowboys making the playoffs, and that person is right, or those people are right, with the moving off of Amari Cooper, Lyle Collins, Randy Gregory, 2 of which those were clearly the right move. I know people are still not happy about Amari Cooper. And then Tyron gets hurt, and then Dak gets hurt in the first game, and you get blown out. I know it was 19-3. It felt like they lost by 35 points. And I think if you go back to that point, everyone would have been thrilled to get here. But that's not what we're dealing with right now, because this looked like a team that could maybe make a run.
Yeah, what do you define as a success?
And that's the thing.
Is what we kind of have to, all argue about here.
Because everyone's going to be different, don't you think?
Well, if you wanted to have a good season, you had a good season.
You did.
You overcame adversity. You overcame it. You had the opportunity, though, Kevin. I think here's where I'll say the season was a failure. Okay. Not because they didn't make and win the Super Bowl, because you had the opportunity to beat the team that knocked you out last year. That's where I think the season is a failure. You had that chance. You talked about it. You prepared for this. You fought all year for it. You wanted, I go back to this. Mike and I were sitting there. Every interview we did that Kevin wasn't there for. Every interview we did,
I remember
Mike,
that Kevin not being there thing.
These guys were talking about what San Francisco did, and they wanted the opportunity to show it again. The defense did. I really do. I think the defense they did show up for that moment.
They deserved a win.
The defense did. But they didn't win. And that's the thing, that's where it's a failure, because that's what the moment you were waiting for. That's what you were trying to get to. I know they say championship, Super Bowl, and all that stuff. They want to get in the big game. But it was more about San Francisco than anything else. Beating Tom Brady was cool. Getting the playoff win was cool. They got, Dak got a monkey off his back in that one. Everybody continued to talk about. But guess what? That monkey jumped right back on after this game. And so therefore, this was not a successful season. Was it a good season? The season was good. The regular season was fascinating. Man, we thought we were going to be done for the year.
All right.
But it wasn't a successful season.
I'm prepared, Mike. I'm prepared to get crushed on this. I get it. I do. I'm going to say that this season was a success.
Wow.
I know. But
you're gonna Charmin me too, because I agree.
I think
I don't like the way that sounds.
If you're, I think if you're judging off of the reality of the last generation, as opposed to the idealistic way this team could be, then I understand why people say failure. I say success. It's been 15 years since you made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. Just think about this. 15 years since you made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. You did that. It's been, I believe, 26 years since you had 10 or more wins in back-to-back seasons. You did that. You finally won a postseason game on the road for the first time in 30 years. So you broke streaks of 15 years, 26 years, 30 years. I will say that this season was a success. Did it end where I wanted it to? Hell no. But in this generation Cowboys performances, this is a great season for the Cowboys. I get it. I lived through those 90s Super Bowls too. Based on the best it can be, this is a failure. But you haven't been there in a really long time. This is a successful Cowboys season.
I think after looking at the team going into the season and them being able to play 12-5 football, having the Dak injury and going 4-1 with a backup quarterback, winning a playoff game on the road. I know it was against a bad team, but they did beat them. The Tampa Bay Bucks won that division. That's the team you had to play, and you destroyed them. Now, I think it's as far as you'll ever go as long as Dak Prescott's the quarterback of this team. I think this is the peak. The Super Bowl is the divisional round. I think it's going to be very tough with Dak Prescott being your quarterback to ever get further than making the divisional round and winning a playoff game in the wild card round. But I do see this as a successful season. Unfortunately, I can't ever predict they can get any further than this with Dak Prescott. You'd have to have like a major injury. Like, a team that's a good team would have to be like on their third string quarterback, and you kind of...
I see what you're doing, Mike. That's what just happened.
Oh, well, then maybe this is the ceiling of the Dak Prescott Dallas Cowboys. But it was a good year. You played well over 500. You were the third best team in the NFC.
And one of the 6 best teams in the NFL, and nobody can change my mind about that.
Yeah, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City on their side. And then the 2 teams that are playing in the NFC Championship and I think those were the 6 best teams. You were probably 6th out of the 6 teams, but you were one of the 6 best teams in the NFL.
I thought Tony Romo made a good point when he was talking about the games going into Sunday. He was like, the teams that lost on Saturday, those were probably the 2 teams that least belonged in this group, in the Jags and the Bills, at least for this season. So I get it, Corey, and I'm not trying to be a weak ass fan, but I understand what the expectations are here. Just the more reasonable expectations are that this was a success. From the 8-1-7, the Cowboys haven't won S in almost 30 years. The notion that it's Super Bowl or bust, it shows the stupidity of Cowboys fans. I think that's too harsh, because I think that's fans almost everywhere. Is like, that's why everyone's like, you go into spring training, everyone's excited for baseball or whatever. Is like, in the back of your mind, like, this probably ain't the year, but your expectations are there. I don't think Cowboys fans are unique in that. It might be unique in terms of how far you have to go for it to be a success.
What did you learn this year about this team?
I learned, I told you, I thought that this season and this postseason was going to be probably my bottom line on who and what Dak is. And who and what Dak is I still believe, I'll prepare to get crushed again, I still believe you can win a Super Bowl with Dak, but you have to have a stacked roster to do so. And my mind can no longer be changed. Dak is not elite and will not be elite. He's still good. I still absolutely think he's good, but he's not going to be...
There's a difference between elite and
for
good.
Sure. And I wonder if Buffalo has the same questions about Josh Allen. I'm not saying they're the same, but I wonder if Buffalo has the same questions about Josh Allen today. But because there is a select group of elite quarterbacks, and Dak's not in it, and I feel certain about that. I also feel certain that I want to keep Dan Quinn, and that this defense is still a damn fine defense.
I think, Mike, I learned that the identity of this team and the culture of this team for the next 5-8 years, depending on how contracts go, is Micah. Like, that's the identity of this team that's going to lead to success. And you got to have everybody kind of vying the way that he does for things, approaching the game the way that he does. And if you don't have a quarterback that can play at that level, he's going to be pointing. Like, I feel like fingers will be pointed at some point. Not that he's going to be going, hey, that guy. But there's going to be this, hey, man, we're keeping up our end of the bargain. What's going on here? And that's going to happen. So I think the identity of this team, that's the one thing that I learned. Because I didn't learn that you're better than San Francisco.
Nope.
I didn't learn that you are a team that can compete with the top 4 teams in the NFL right now. That's something that I don't like.
I like what both of you are saying, because maybe the future to the Cowboys being more successful in the playoffs is building around Micah and not building around Dak. Look, Dak had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb last year. With 10 minutes to go in the game, they had 7 points.
Yeah.
So you had, if it's like, God, Amari Cooper should have been there, and he kind of could have maybe helped. Last year at home, you had 7 points in 50 minutes of football with Amari Cooper and with CeeDee Lamb on the field. I get CeeDee Lamb has become better, and Amari would have probably been about the same. But at the same time, I don't think you can give Dak enough to then make him a premium quarterback. I think you have to ease back Dak and go, if we're going to do anything on offense, we're going to try to build up the offensive line as great as we can get, and we're going to have a Derrick Henry-like offense. And we're going to have to tell Dak, don't turn over the effing football, because we're going to stack this team with a whole bunch of defensive players to try to do defensive and running game winning football.
Which, for the record, if you look back at the best season of Tony Romo's career, which I know the counter argument was still ended in the divisional round, is him taking care of the football and leading on the running game, led to an amazing 2014 for Tony Romo. And I've also seen a lot of people who are like, I learned that Romo and Dak are the same. And I know that infuriates people on one side or another, but from the 214, this is what I continue to go back to, is a success but disappointing. You know, like that, both of those things can be true. It can be a success but still disappointing. And from the 817, this is actually more even than I would have guessed. From the 409, good season. From the 817, we all thought this team would be below 500. From the 903, depends on how you look at it. I only had them winning 9 games. And so there's a lot coming in like that. Although the flip side is from the 832, absolutely a failure, 27 years on the books. From the 214, playoffs is what matters, failure. It's closer than I thought. I thought it was going to be maybe 80-20 failure, and it's closer to 60-65 failure to 35-40%.
Here
success.
We're more successful, unless Reggie wants to make it 50-50. I say success. Kevin says success. Corey says failure. Reggie says
successful season.
I'm not going to get mad and argue about it. You had a good season. If you wanted to defeat the demon that you lived with all season, you did not do that.
Yeah,
so you're kind of in
right.
the same spot you were in
No,
last
right.
year.
And I think we all feel like
now we got to trade our best receiver. You let go of one of our offensive linemen, and then let go, and then
we'll
screw up our contract with another guy.
And then we'll move one step further.